GM friends, and welcome back to another episode on the Friends Validator YouTube channel. If this is your first video, I'm yours, Yuri Mybom, and this shows up that brings together crypto pioneers, exciting projects, and a thriving community. And today is a very important day because the EigenLayer launched very, very recently. A lot of buzz is happening there. We already had the EtherFi airdrop and lots of other airdrops, including the EigenLayer airdrop itself is up to come. And we at Friends Validator decided to launch an operator on EigenLayer with our fellow friends from DeFi Dojo. So we will be represented on chain there with DeFi Dojo x Friends Validator. And today we will talk about all of the different airdrop and yield opportunities in the EigenLayer ecosystem, why you as a fellow cosmonaut should also have an eye on that, why it is expensive to use EigenLayer in the Ethereum ecosystem, but also why most of the opportunities are in this ecosystem. And with that being said, let me introduce you to my tremendous guests today, which is Steven from DeFi Dojo, Mara, the slot, also from DeFi Dojo Validation, and of course, last but not least, Farmer, the whole DeFi Dojo gang is here. How are you doing, guys?
Doing well. Thanks for having us. Very excited to be here.
Doing great, man. Super excited to talk about ETH and Cosmos and how it all works together.
Yeah, thank you, Yuri. It's great to be here. We're really excited about this partnership.
Yes, likewise. I can just give that back. This is also our first co-branded validator, so like operator, to be precise here. But yeah, we locked in the partnership a couple of days ago, and then just one day after that, we decided to launch an operator on EigenLayer together. And now let's get right into it. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities why to launch an operator on EigenLayer. It is one of the hottest ecosystems in all of crypto right now. So let's really start at the beginning for people who are like kind of new to EigenLayer still. And also we have to think about that EigenLayer is not, your common layer one where smart contracts get deployed on, and which is like relatively easy to understand if you're in crypto for a while. Because even if you're in crypto for a couple of months now, EigenLayer is relatively complex. So let us make sure that we set the ground for this conversation. So maybe Steven, you can help me like map out this ecosystem. So you have the EigenLayer, then you have the data availability layer on top of that, and then you have the AVSs. I think these are like the three most important components of the EigenLayer ecosystem, and everything is like secured in that sense by the operators that Cosmos folks may associate with validators. So yeah, maybe you can help me map all of this out.
Well, from a yield perspective, I can certainly give you a great overarching explanation of how to farm this and how to think about this and how to look forward to airdrops. From an infrastructure standpoint, I think Mara is probably a little bit more expert here. But yeah, there are AVSs, there are operators, and there's EigenLayer itself. So Mara, do you want to jump in and do your spiel?
Absolutely, yeah. Honestly, it's very interesting. Like this, partnership is. The DeFi Dojo team has spent a lot of time in Ethereum. Friends has obviously spent a lot of time in Cosmos, but we're kind of joining forces, and we're both, DeFi Dojo is getting more and more Cosmos native, and Friends is becoming more and more Cosmos native. And that's almost a way you could think about EigenLayer, right? EigenLayer is almost like the Cosmosification, if I can use it as a word, of Ethereum. And so basically what's happening is you are having a protocol called EigenLayer, where people are locking up their ETH. Now, there's different ways that they can lock up their ETH. The first is through native staking. So some people who are running solo validators can go and can lock up the ETH that is in their validator in EigenLayer. But a lot of people aren't running their own Ethereum validator, so they're using a liquid staking platform. So you can think of the really big ones like Lido, like Rocket Pool, like Mantle ETH, like Frax ETH. There's many, many, many of them, right? So what people are doing is they're taking that ETH and they're then going and restaking it in EigenLayer. So they're still earning their, normal kind of liquid staking rate, which is on the Ethereum side is somewhere between 3 and 4%. And now they're going to be, getting an additional benefit from restaking it as well. Now, EigenLayer is kind of very early on in its process in terms of its development. So for now, what people are doing when they go and take their liquid staking token and put it in EigenLayer is they're not getting an additional yield per se, but they are getting a lot of exposure to airdrops. And that's being represented in the form of EigenLayer points. And you earn 24 EigenLayer points per day for every 1 ETH that you have in EigenLayer. Now, we don't know exactly what that's going to represent. Officially, according to the EigenLayer team, there will be no token, there will be no airdrop. But I think it's pretty commonly understood, pretty commonly, as Steven's winking there, known that, you know, that is the official speak that has to be said before a team moves into that phase of it. So we don't know when the EigenLayer token is going to drop, but we have a pretty good idea that these EigenLayer points, either linearly or sublinearly or in some form, will be converted into EigenLayer tokens. Now, the EigenLayer project, for some of you guys who have been following it, know that they have raised at some pretty amazing valuations. Most recently, A16Z gave them $100 million. So not that they valued them at $100 million, they gave them $100 million in a solo round with no other investors. So there's a lot of speculation what this could, the FDV at launch could be. Some people are saying 10, some people are saying 20, 30, 100. I mean, no one knows, but there's, a ton of different ideas here. And so like, that's kind of like one of the main things that people are doing currently is speculating on the airdrop by restaking in EigenLayer. Now, of course, without all these things, this being crypto, you have to have a liquid staking token on top. And now this is called a liquid restaking token. And so there's a number of these different protocols that are then where you can go and take either your native ETH or your LST representation and deposit it into their protocol, and they will give you a receipt token for your ETH in EigenLayer. And the size of this is very big. EigenLayer itself, I think, has about $12 billion in TVL. These restaking protocols as a total have about 9 billion. The largest is EtherFi. They've got 3.5 billion. Renzo's at 3 billion. Puffer at a bit over 1. Kelp almost at 800 million. And there's probably about 7 or 8 of them. And all of these are kind of competing to become the next Lido, to become the next rocket pool of EigenLayer by being the kind of most liquid, most well-recognized liquid restaking token. And then the next step of this is, well, why is everyone restaking their ETH? What is the point of this? And so eventually the point will be to go and rent out economic security. So similar to ideas that have been talked about in Cosmos. So think about mesh security, think about interchain security. There's been a lot of different versions and variations of it. In the EigenLayer world, what will happen is you will be able to have an AVS that steps in, and that could be something like an L2. It could be an Oracle. It could be just a protocol that wants to rent economic security for one reason or the other. They will then be able to go to EigenLayer and say, hey, we need 100 million, we need 1 billion, whatever the number is of economic security that we want to rent, and we're willing to pay X amount for it, right? And so that's when they will go to the different people who are restaking their ETH, the different operators, the different LRT protocols, and find through the open markets. Right now, it's kind of happening behind the scenes, but in the future, there'll be an open market for renting security, and people will be able to go and say, I will give you X if you give me this other thing, and then also be able to negotiate the slashing requirements. So the first AVS, which is very exciting, is EigenDA. And this is something we're actively working on in this partnership between Friends and DeFi Dojo to become an operator for EigenDA. EigenDA is data availability. So we're really kind of excited about that, and we can get into that a little bit more. But we're also actively working on partnerships behind the scenes with different LRTs, with different AVSs, and really trying to make sure that anyone who is staking their ETH with the DeFi Dojo Friends operator is getting the best exposure to airdrops, whether that be from AVSs, EigenLayer itself, LRTs, and all of the above. So I'm going to stop there and pass it over to you, Yuri. I can talk a lot about EigenLayer. I don't want to be too long in the tooth about it.
Yeah, no, but I think you covered it very well. And I think this was like a necessary groundwork here before we dive deeper into that. And before I also hand over the word to Farmer for the first time, just like the conclusion of it. So you have the EigenLayer, and right now the game is really who is becoming the dominant LRT in that sense, who is becoming the next Lido. And the ideas of restaking is essentially one, of course, it enables capital efficiency. Hey, you can automatically restake your ETH, very similar to what we have done in the Cosmos SDK, where you were able to restake your staking rewards. But now you can also go ahead and say, hey, this has a certain crypto economic security. I lend this out to other applications on top of that. And the interesting thing is that the first so-called AVS will be the EigenLayer data availability layer. And this is also what I just want to briefly mention. It's really like a data availability for all kinds of applications that need data availability, and send it out to L1s, L2s, L3s, so that all of the nodes on these layers have access to the data that they need. And this data can be everything from Oracle data, smart contract data, transaction data, just everything. And obviously this improves with scaling. So this is like kind of the technical architecture of it. And yeah, like what would you say, Farmer? Because maybe people who were in the Cosmos for a while and dive deeper into interchain security and all of these things, like the terms, they are different, but it sounds a little bit similar. Lending out security, providing security, becoming the best security provider in that sense. Is this like kind of that EigenLayer copied the best of Cosmos and brought it into Ethereum, just with way more money?
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe the best way for like people who've been around Cosmos a long time to understand it is to think about Babylon. So they're trying to take Bitcoin and use Bitcoin as economic security for these Cosmos SDK proof of stake chains. So this is very similar, except they're using Ethereum instead. And so what's cool, like Ethereum has this robust DeFi infrastructure and people who are used to using DeFi all of the time, where Bitcoin really doesn't have that yet, you know, with runes and different things, like they're building towards that. So I think a lot of Cosmos chains are looking at this differently now and saying maybe we should use ETH should be an option as economic security, as well as Babylon and Atom and Osmosis and other things.
Yeah, I think that's like a very, very good comparison here, also between the two ecosystems. And yeah, I think you can really think of it a little bit like Babylon for the guys who already understood that. But yeah, let's get into the opportunities, into the airdrop and yield opportunities. So officially, there won't be an Eigen airdrop, wink, wink. But yeah, we have seen some airdrops already coming from LRTs, including EtherFi, which was pretty decent actually. So yeah, Steve, maybe we can talk a little bit about this now. So all of these LRTs, they are now competing with each other. Who is giving more incentives for users to deploy their ETH on their fellow LRT providing solution? Is this like kind of the right way to look at it? Is this like kind of the marketing go-to market strategy of these people?
Yeah, so they're all trying to attract a bunch of TVL for various reasons. They all want to be the winner. So think about when Lido launched and Lido started to incentivize the crap out of every single DeFi opportunity out there. People thought, oh man, Lido's going to dilute themselves. The Lido token is going to go down. It's being used for emissions on every single chain for every single ST asset you could possibly conceive of. And then they got hegemony. They took over the market. They become number one. They became number one, and they've held the position since. No one really competes with Lido at a reasonable level. And so that is the LST space. The LRT protocols are trying to become the Lido, as Mara said earlier. They want that hegemony. They want to become the de facto default liquid restaking token of the space, so that when a person comes in and they want to use an LRT, they think EtherFi, or they think Kelp, or they think Renzo, whatever it's going to be, or they think Puffer, who knows? EtherFi, clear winner, clear head start right now, though Renzo's catching up. Renzo has over 2 billion TVL, so good for them. Though I think EtherFi at prices yesterday had over 3 billion. So it's going to be a fight, and it's going to come down to who can incentivize the hardest and the longest. That sounds dirty. but in a way that actually generates yield and interest and composability. So all of these protocols right now are trying to not only offer really, really high theoretical yields through point systems, they're also trying to be as composable as they can be. And we've seen a lot of action in terms of leverage, a lot of action in terms of speculation on things like Pendle and whales, then just a lot of action in your day-to-day DeFi activities like liquidity providing and leveraging. So, or not leveraging, market making and staking, that sort of thing. So if you want, we can look at some opportunities now and sort of like get a scope of the landscape.
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's
go
do
ahead.
that. I'm going to go ahead and present because that's the most fun. Let's see, EtherFi. Yeah, this will work. Okay. Well, first, if you want to like navigate these protocols, what you'll learn pretty quickly is that all of these LRTs just have this ridiculous list of integrations, and this is good. What this means is they are dedicated to and interested in composability, but it can also be pretty daunting. So if you look at this, you say, "Oh my gosh, which one where should I go?" One way to sort of think about this is what is your thesis? What are you looking for? Are you looking for principal protection? You just want to put your ETH somewhere and not lose any ETH, not risk any ETH, and just get some yield on that? Well, if so, you're probably going to want to go to the liquidity pools, right? Things like Balancer, Curve, maybe Prisma, Small A might be good as well. All of these things are going to be very low risk. You're going to get some points, maybe even multiplied points. You're going to have principal protection or lending. So lending on things like Gearbox and Sturdy have been pretty ridiculous. So if we go over to, let's just say, strategies right now, and do, looking at my strategy, passive earn, you can see there's a 23% base rate. But if you really want points on top of that, you're going to have to go to somewhere like Sturdy, where you can lend and get Renzo points on top of your 56% base rate. So really, it's hard to find all these opportunities. You just have to like go to these LRT protocols, go to DeFi, and see what they have. Now, I know if you're a Cosmos native, you're probably pretty concerned about gas, and I totally get that, which is why you can avoid doing things on ETH and aim for the L2s, like Mode, which is a phenomenal L2 with very, 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 very low gas. I think it's like, last time I checked, the transaction was 0.000007 ETH, which is, less than a penny. And you can go on Mode right now, get, as I showed you guys, where is it? Sturdy. As I showed you guys, has a 56% base rate paid in ETH plus Mode points plus Renzo points. So you're not getting the EigenLayer points, but if you want to get the EigenLayer points, you could do something like leverage up We ETH, which is wrapped EtherFi ETH at a 90% LTV and only a 15% borrow cost. If you do the math there with some projections of what these points might cost, I'll give you a little taste of what the projected APRs are. They're over 600%. But I'm not going to show you all my math. If you want to get that, join the DeFi Dojo Discord. But it's really, really high. Now, the reason why this opportunity is so, let's just say, lopsided is because at the moment you can't bridge over wrapped EtherFi ETH. You'd have to buy it on Mode, and the prices aren't great. But I will say, a little bit of alpha here, that bridging is coming very, very soon, likely this week. So that should be fun. There's also things like Hyperlock. So this is like Pendle, but let's take a step back and do some things that are a little bit easier. Also, every one of these, Kelp, Renzo, EtherFi, they're going to have that DeFi spot on their dashboard. We can go and you can look, and sometimes, they'll even have an APY, which is really nice. So Kelp sort of provides that for you, estimated APY, the TVL, as well as their multiplier and the chain. So if you want to go on Arbitrum, fantastic, low gas. If you want to farm blast points while also farming LRT points, while also farming Eigen points, you can go on here. Hyperlock's a great example of where you might want to do this because they're going to have a lot of airdrops, Juice as well, Thruster. So there are so many opportunities out there. To try to sort through them in this call will be impossible. However, it's not like this. This is something that anyone can do, right? Find your niche, whether it's liquidity providing or leveraging. I'm a leverager because I think these points are going to be worth a lot of money. We saw they definitely were worth the first EtherFi airdrop. I think Eigen points are going to be worth around 20 cents per point. And so if I can get, 8x exposure to those, 10x exposure to those through leverage, that's what I'm going to do. And we've done a lot of math in the back end to sort of see whether or not that's the best case. And if you want to get an idea of what these points might be worth, Whales Market is an okay place to look at where these points are being speculatively sold through this interesting collateral mechanism. I'm not going to describe the mechanism. I'll just show you how they're being priced. So right here, you can see that EigenLayer, these are EigenLayer points that have filled or closed. So, they're closing at 18 cents, 18 cents, 16 cents, 19 cents. And these actually were more, but, because ETH is down, the dollar value is down. All of these closed in ETH denomination, except for these two, which were USD. So 18 cents. So you can see how the market is pricing these points currently. And you can do this for, EtherFi. This is season 2 EtherFi points, which is really interesting. You can do this with, let's see, what other LRTs do we have here? Blast, if you wanted to, if you want to farm those Blast points as well while farming Eigen and EtherFi. You have Puffer Finance. These points are actually incredibly highly priced in my opinion. But hey, if Pufferfi points launch at this price, I will be super excited. It means the implied APR for a lot of the plays out there are just nuts. But I'm skeptical. And then Kelp DAO. So if you want to get a sense of what these points might be worth, Whales Market's going to be a good place to do that. There's also things like Fluid, which I know the DeFi Dojo particularly has been really interested about. It's where you can do one-click leveraging. Gearbox also has that. So Gearbox and Fluid are semi-similar. Sturdy is also going to have one-click leveraging in the next few weeks. All of these things allow you to very easily get leverage exposure. But the thing you want to consider is what the cost of those points is. So for Pendle, it's super easy. You're literally paying for the points effectively. You're paying for the rights to the yield of assets. Now, I'm not going to go on and explain Pendle because that would be a whole other call, but just know all of these opportunities exist out there. When you're leveraging, what that means is you're depositing one of these LRTs, borrowing ETH, swapping it for the LRT, redepositing that as collateral, and then just looping that process. So you have leveraged exposure to the LRT and therefore the LRT's points. The cost of these points effectively becomes the borrow rate. So your interest that you're paying on the borrow is effectively what you're paying for those points. And so you can effectively calculate the cost per point. And so what I'll say is you want to look for a low ETH borrow rate and the best possible pegs for your LRT collateral, because whenever you leverage, you do have liquidation risk. I know I've probably said a bunch of really confusing stuff. If there are any questions or comments, you want me to dive into anything else, let me know.
One thing I just want to add.
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Mara.
Is if these are Cosmos folks who are kind of interacting with ETH DeFi for the first time, I think Stephen gave a phenomenal overview of the amazing, weird, and wonderful opportunities that are out there. As he said, there are a ton of them, and some of them are really, really exciting. Some are having triple-digit APRs. Maybe even 4-digit APRs, depending on how you're doing the math on some of these valuations. But, even in its most basic level, like Steven said, he's estimating that an EigenLayer point would be worth 20 cents. If you are just doing the most basic step of taking an ETH and depositing it into EigenLayer and just earning 24 EigenLayer points per day, at 20 cents, that's coming out at about 58% APR. Just on the surface level, right? So you can go
just for depositing.
You can go as deep as you want. And I highly encourage folks to come join us over in the DeFi Dojo, nerd out about all of these crazy opportunities that are out there. But if you're less familiar with this stuff and you want to have a lower risk, lower maintenance opportunity, even just taking something like Lido's wrap staked ETH, where you're earning, say, 3%, depositing that into EigenLayer, and then depositing that into the Friends DeFi Dojo validator, you're going to be getting 50, 60% APR with an additional, opportunity of getting other AVS airdrops, right? So we're out there behind the scenes working with AVSs, talking to folks, talking to LRTs, making sure that this operator is going to be included in some of the best airdrops that are happening. And you're getting this amazing exposure to EigenLayer, which officially doesn't have a token, but I think everyone knows, wink, wink, around the corner does have a token coming. And if you do have any interest in in Ethereum and kind of like the new direction that ETH is taking, I think EigenLayer is a really interesting place to start. It's a really kind of second core primitive that ETH is having that's in some ways very, interesting and easy to understand for people who are coming from Cosmos, because a lot of these ideas, I think, have their origins, in mesh security, in interchain security, from the Cosmos Hub and these other places.
We should talk about the what a person is participating in when they're participating in Eigen, because it feels like it's just Eigen, and it feels like it's just that, it's just that 56%, but it's so much more. So the way they've extended this is actually pretty brilliant. You start off with EigenLayer, and Eigen the speculative Eigen token. So people are participating in EigenLayer with a potential 56% APR just for participating in that. And then LRTs have built on top of that to sort of make that participation liquid. So now you have Eigen participation plus LRT participation, which means Eigen airdrop plus LRT airdrop. And that could be, we've seen EtherFi being a phenomenal airdrop. We know that Kelp is up and coming. We know that Renzo's up and coming. We know Puffer's up and coming. Swell, I would like to say they're up and coming, but man, they've drawn out that airdrop with pearls for so long. But they're going to be up and coming as well. So now we have Eigen plus LRT. Well, there's a third layer here. It's AVSs. So AVSs should also be, we've already seen some, airdrop to LRTs and Eigen directly. So now you have Eigen airdrop participation plus LRT airdrop participation plus AVS airdrop participation, all just from staking with one of these LRTs. Or with Eigen directly, you have Eigen plus AVS. And the AVS proportion to Eigen direct stakers may be higher depending on how they do their calculus. And that's so much already. And if you wanted to speculate on points and valuations, I'm sure you could do some really silly moon math. But it's also not the end. Some of these AVSs will be building their own chains or have integrations with their own applications. And if they do build a chain, like if we have an AVS that is doing data availability for some new chain, there is a chance that that chain, if it's new and launching, drops to the AVS. So you go from Eigen to LRT to AVS to anything built utilizing those AVSs. And like this rabbit hole can go even deeper, but I think that's the most reasonable and very, very likely to happen immediate way to consider and conceptualize the value of these yields and how this narrative will probably dominate the EVM space for, let's just say, the foreseeable future, or at least maybe for the rest of this market. Bull market. I like to say bull market. It doesn't feel like a bull market today, or last few weeks, but certainly it has been. So I think like the same way you didn't want to sleep on TIA or even Osmosis. The Osmo token has done phenomenal. You don't want to be sleeping on this particular narrative if you have any interest whatsoever in EVM things. And I think as Cosmos and EVM become more and more integrated and interrelated, this is increasingly a good opportunity to test the waters, play with some fun yields, and get to know the burgeoning infrastructure of the new EVM landscape.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of land here. And I think to unpack it a little bit, I love how you basically, mapped out the way how to do it in a very complex way to go, for example, on the mode layer 2. And from there, you can, engage in different activities to maximize your airdrop with different pools and whatnot, which is very complex. But just if you think about, so I'm I always use Swell widely, and also Swell, you mentioned it, they count pearls instead of points, so pearls are points essentially, and this will also be most likely wink wink an airdrop, and from there you can deposit your staked ETH from Swell to EigenLayer, get exposure to all of the LRTs, and then from there, as you mentioned, the AVSs, for example the EigenLayer DA. From there will be other roll-ups, for example, launching on top of that. So just with one action, by taking your ETH, liquid stake it, for example, on Swell, put it into Eigen, and engage with a few LRTs. From there, you can have 1, 2, 3, 4 plus airdrops if there will be roll-ups launching on top of these AVSs or applications or services. So these are the two strategies that folks can look at, if I understood you right, Stephen. Either do the complicated thing and leverage everything out of it, or if you're more conservative and say, hey, I really just want to have exposure, then just bring your ETH to work is the right direction.
Man, it can get real complicated depending on the thesis of the user. But yes, I think that if you don't want to overthink this, if you want to have the most secure, set it and forget it play, just restaking some ETH on Eigen directly, and of course using DeFi Dojo X Friends for your operator, that's going to be the way to go. But if you want the more complex stuff, one, you can follow me on, I hate calling it X, but X or Twitter, because I'm talking about these things all the time. I posted 2 videos in the past 3 days about this stuff exactly. And then if you want to be talking to the people who I consider the best in this space, the DeFi Dojo is definitely the best place for that. I mean, there's so much good stuff happening. If you want fixed rate yields, you can get them through Pendle. 60% fixed rate for like 30 more days. That's insane to me. If you want to get exposure to points plus pretty consistent liquidity yields, you can go on Magpie or PenPy. Right now, 72% plus 2x points, and that's base rate yield. There's the lending. There's so many things that can fit anyone's thesis on ETH, all because of this particular narrative. That if you learn this one narrative and its associated opportunities, like you are effectively an EVM DeFi master. So I really think it's a great learning place, and hope that you guys are as excited about it as we are. If you've seen my posts on Twitter, I am so stoked about this EigenLayer Operator partnership that I can't stop talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, we are also extremely excited about this, and I think excitement, is like the right way to put it. But I think some, especially Cosmos folks, get some PST here if they hear these super high APRs. So maybe let's talk a little bit also about the sustainability here once again to understand.
Sure. So what they use for
the
Eigen
APR
is very similar to a Terra Luna mechanism. And I'm kidding. It's nothing at all similarly. But sorry, go ahead. Finish your question, Yuri.
No, it's just like, where does the APR come from? From my understanding right now, it's essentially marketing expense from each LRT to incentivize folks to go to them, stake, liquid stake, and restake it via them. And then further down the road, it's really about having this exposure to the Ethereum ecosystem, because this is where you want to deploy your rollup on, for example, on the EigenDA, because it gives you like so much economic security that you don't get anywhere else in all of crypto. Is this like the right way to put it in? I think you want to share screen.
So one thing, and I'll let Steven share a screen and kind of dive through all this, but at a very high level, you can think of this as being a player versus environment kind of situation. Everyone is competing for this amazingly big opportunity. And because there's so much competition in the market, us as users are at such a big advantage. Everyone's throwing points, they're throwing tokens. You know, everyone wants to get the TVL and they want to get it fast, right? And so the only way that they can do that is by this kind of like arms war of like, I'm going to drop this much, I'm going to airdrop this much, I'm going to do all these different things. And so that's really kind of what we're stuck in the middle of, which is great. It's great to be stuck in a player versus environment situation rather than being PvP where we're all fighting against each other for yield. Now we're just kind of taking it out of, the EigenLayer AVSs and the LRTs and stuff like that. I don't think it's going to last forever. You know, to be clear, some of these yields we've been talking about will probably last only for the next few months. Hopefully EigenLayer airdrop will happen in the next 2 or 3 months. Hopefully most of these Eigen related things like AVSs and LRTs, you know, a lot of these airdrops will be happening in the relative near term, which is great because then we can kind of actualize some of these point gains that we've been getting. But even after the airdrops happen, they're still going to be doing large incentive campaigns, because all of these, like for example, Renzo at 3 billion TVL, EtherFi at 3.5 billion, they don't want to just have this kind of drop off a cliff. They want to be able to maintain those numbers. So they're going to have to continue to incentivize just using different primitives and different ways of doing it. So I'll pass it over to Steven here, and he can kind of give you some more of the brass tacks of how all this stuff is working.
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of where the yield's coming from, Mara hit the nail on the head. It's coming from all of these protocols and ecosystems trying to gain market share, hegemony, interest. So EtherFi wants to have, EigenLayer wants to have this massive, incredibly interesting launch. We also saw the success with Celestia. So now people are thinking, oh, big airdrop, lots of money. The airdrop is where the yield's coming from. It's all speculation on how big that airdrop's going to be. That is the EigenLayer base yield. And then LRTs are effectively the same thing. It's okay, these LRTs are directly participating in this EigenLayer narrative. They're probably going to have large FDVs and be some of the largest protocols on mainnet. So as a result of that, their airdrops should be really valuable, and people are going out and farming those. On the bright side, you're not seeing any system with like large points of failure, aside from if these things just launch under value. And if you think that, if you want to be hesitant, there are still yields for you. And that's why I really emphasize learning these systems, because even if you think, well, EigenLayer is just a Ponzi, which, people call anything they don't like a Ponzi, fair enough. That's okay. You can still dramatically benefit from these narratives. So as an example, because people are so interested in the yield or like the points of these assets, you can go and buy fixed rate yields, 62% on Renzo ETH. Now, what does that mean? It means because there's a YT and a PT. YT is the rights to the yield. PT is the rights to the principal. They separate the yield from the principal. I think, what's the name of the app coming to IBC? That's doing it, Frizzante?
Frizzante, you mean again?
Is that the name of it?
Yeah, the yield trading app coming to Osmosis called Frizzante, but I think they're in a stealth launch, so we probably shouldn't give too much alpha on that.
Okay, well, I take it back. So this is also coming to IBC, hopefully. But basically, they separate the yield from the principal, and when there's a lot of demand for the yield, the principal token goes down in value, which means if you buy it, because it will always expire at 1-to-1 with the underlying. So this PT token will always expire 1-to-1 with ETH. So let's just look at, like, if I had 1 ETH right now, and this expires in 6 days. Okay, so this is a very, very short expiry. I get 1.0083 PT easy ETH. So that means in 6 days, I get 0.0083. That's not a lot, but if you look at the larger expiries, you can get like much, much more. But that is an annualized rate of 62%, and it is fixed rate because the PT always expires 1-to-1 with ETH. Which is fantastic. So if you don't want to speculate on the points, you can just get fixed rate as a result of all the interest in the points. And if all of those things flop, you still get fixed rate yield, which is phenomenal. And then if you don't want the points, you can lend to places like Sturdy. We saw earlier, lending can get you anywhere between 25% to 56% plus points. So you have principal protection. You're dealing with like not speculating on these points. You're getting actual yield in ETH, but you're benefiting from the narrative. So, and like so where does yield come from here? This comes from the demand for leverage. People who want points want a lot of leverage. They're paying you directly to utilize your asset because if you should know what a lending protocol does if you're in DeFi at this point. But if you don't, that's totally fine. You're lending an asset so someone else can use it, right? It's Aave, or if you're thinking in IBC terms, it's Mars, it's UMI, or UX. And they're paying you 56% in ETH to utilize your ETH, and you're also getting points. On Gearbox, same exact thing, but you're getting a base rate of 23%. And then you can do this on many other places. I'm not going to list them all. Just know that there are ways to get like quote unquote organic yield from organic demand, or there are ways to get leverage speculating point yields. Whatever your thesis is, there is a yield for you as a result of this narrative.
Yeah, I mean, I just understood that my tax report is becoming way more complicated this year compared to the previous year, and I will need to do a lot of explaining to my tax advisor for what the hell I did in the past couple of weeks, months. But what I actually find so interesting about, for example, Sturdy is that it's like on top of an L2, right? Mode, as I understood it correctly. So can you talk like once again a little bit about mode, because I think this is like actually very interesting.
Oh yeah, sure. So I can give you like pseudo alpha because I can't there are some things that I can't say, but I will say that the mode airdrop is coming very, very soon. And there are some great opportunities to farm this airdrop in the last few weeks. And the number one way, in my opinion, is Sturdy. So Mode is an L2 that is built on top of EigenLayer, built on EigenDA, or will be the first, I believe, L2 on utilizing EigenDA. So as a result, it's really integrated with LRTs. So if you're looking for LRT yields and incredibly cheap Cosmos-like gas, Mode is one of those places. And the DeFi ecosystem is finally starting to expand, finally starting to grow. If you want to do any swapping on Mode, I highly recommend Odos. Odos is a DEX aggregator. So if you've ever used EVM before, it's like Llama Swap, except it's on Mode. Llama Swap doesn't exist yet on Mode, but Odos is, and Odos is amazing. So like, just look how beautiful this is. This is swapping 1 ETH to USDC on Mode. Look at how it routes your transaction for an optimal swap. It is beautiful. I love it. It's so pretty. And so like it's going to give you the best swap. It's going to go through all these different dexes to give you the best routing. And so don't go and just like swap on the biggest dex. do use Odos. I'm not an affiliate. I get paid nothing for saying this. It's just a really, really good product. And then like if you want to bridge to Mode, you can use the native Mode bridge. There's not too many assets you can bridge natively through the Mode bridge. You have like these right here. If you want to bridge some other assets, there are some available on Connect Bridge. And yeah, you can go around, play around. I think like the two best opportunities to farm last minute points are leveraging up wrapped EtherFi ETH, leveraging up Renzo ETH, lending ETH on the Renzo aggregator, or providing liquidity on Kim, which is a liquidity, it's a DEX where you can provide liquidity, and they have 4x points right now. So like Sturdy and Kim are the two main opportunities that I would consider for farming Mode points and LRT points and Eigen points in the last sort of like few weeks. Few can be 2 to 3 weeks of before the airdrops.
Yeah, Thank you for sharing that alpha with us, because I think that's like super exciting. Like, I mean, it's really insane how thriving the ecosystem has become. And just once again to clarify, this Mode is an L2 on the EigenDA, and EigenDA again is the AVS. So I really like how you map this out here, because again, at the beginning of the episode, some folks did not even know, what the EigenDA is and where the AVS comes in, and this is really how it comes alive. So you have the AVS is like the EigenDA as mentioned. Then you have Mode on top of the AVS. So basically to go back to what we have discussed at the beginning. So you can enter the ecosystem with, for example, Swell Stack ETH, go to Eigen, go to the LRT, go to basically the AVS by bridging your ETH to Mode, and then you have like applications built on top of Mode, for example, Odos, which you mentioned. So this entire rabbit hole is so complex and so huge. But yeah, are there any other AVSs, like other layer 2s or applications that will launch on the EigenDA that you are excited about?
I think there's a bunch that are going to be using. So I'm here represented by a Celestine Sloth, which is another DA option. So there is also this very kind of interesting, again, player versus environment. I know I mentioned this before, but you have this arms race of DA solutions. Celestia is one, EigenLayer DA will be another. And I think we're going to see more and more these different L2s that are building on top. There are some already that are building on Celestia. So for example, Manta is one that's using Celestia DA. But I think that things like Mantle, Mode, those are already using EigenLayer DA. And it's going to be really interesting, to see, one becomes dominant than the other. Being in this space for a long time, one thing I know that when there is competition, it's very healthy for the space. And the people that tend to benefit are the users like ourselves. So I think it's great to see Celestia competing with EigenLayer. I think that's a really healthy thing, rather than having some just monopolistic protocol who does all of the DA for everyone. I think when we see, this competition, it means cheaper rates. It means maybe better airdrops for us, and it means more decentralization. So I think that's great. But I realized that we never even defined what an AVS is. So I might just do that. And I will note that we've used so many acronyms, and it is so confusing. There is literally, if you go to the EigenLayer docs, there is like...
Oh yeah, sorry to interrupt. It was like so confusing. It was like... Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
There's like a 2-page glossary of terms in the EigenLayer docs that just define what all this stuff is. So if you're confused, that's okay. This is very confusing. Me and Steven talk super fast. We're super immersed by all this stuff. And so if you have questions, tag Steven on Twitter, come join the Discord, write a comment in the YouTube video. It's okay to be confused, but even just to define one of the basic things, which is AVS, what is that? That just means an actively validated service. So you can think about it almost as like a Cosmos app chain, right? This is just going to be people who are renting economic security from EigenLayer. So as we said, we're going to have data availability services that are renting economic security. We're going to have L2s that are going to be renting economic security. We might have oracles. We might have gaming platforms. Anyone who has a need or an interest to have economic security can rent it from EigenLayer, and then they will be called an AVS. We will also have AVSs, which will then have almost like second layer AVSs built on top. One is called Ethos. That's one that's bringing EigenLayer to Cosmos. It's very interesting. It hasn't launched yet, but we're going to see protocols like Sommelier, for example, who are going to be renting economic security from Ethos, which is in turn renting economic security from EigenLayer. So these are all, you know, an amazing assortment of DeFi and kind of composability, modular Legos that are getting built on top of one another.
Yeah, and maybe to also give the word to Farmer once again to now reflect on what we are doing here. So AVSs also come, I mean, they also come with a risk because they also have their own slashing terms, as far as I understood it right. So you as an operator, you need to decide, or you get also directed by all of these DAOs to what AVS you want to secure. So what actively validated system, to also have this term out there, your operator wants to secure with your ETH that you delegate to the fellow operator. And now the thing is that you as an operator, as soon as you basically help secure this AVS, you also get the exposure to a potential airdrop from this AVS. So for example, now in the case of the EigenDA, you as an operator, you go ahead, help secure the EigenDA with 96 ETH, sorry, 96 ETH at the current state. And for doing that, you also get like exposure to all of these airdrops, for example, via the L2s, such as Mode, that will launch on top of the EigenDA. So yeah, Farmer, can you like maybe reflect a little bit on that? So is this kind of what we, so DeFi Dojo X Friends, will do here in the next couple of weeks and months, looking for the best opportunities to provide this to our fellow stakers?
Yeah, exactly. So go ahead, Danny. Farmer.
Oh, it's fun. Yeah, absolutely. That's the goal here. And what's so cool about this partnership is, you know, this is ETH taking things from Cosmos. So we've got Friends, who's one of like the best technically and who's been around the longest, Cosmos validators, and or in this case, you could call an operator. So we have all that like incredible tech experience in the background. And then you mix that with what Steven and Mara are doing in the DeFi space and how they've been really like the top knowledge and top educators in the Ethereum DeFi space for years now. And so they've already gone out and made all these relationships with these different protocols that are building on top of EigenLayer. And so we were going to be able to provide not just to like our people, friends, or people who are like typically staking with us on Cosmos chains, but actually providing that opportunity to LRTs projects that are building on top of EigenLayer as well. And so it's the perfect mix. It's the OG Ethereum DeFi aficionados mixed with incredible Cosmos tech on the back end. And I really look at this opportunity, and like Steven has been like screaming about it, like just trying to like explain to people like what an incredible opportunity this is for months. But this to me is like staking Atom in 2021, you know, and there's just this like cascade effect of airdrops that we like can't really comprehend yet. But it's one of those things that it's so big that like you want to touch it. Like you want your wallet to be involved with it. You want it to be like staking, bridging, all of these different things like Mara was talking about. There are so many different applications that can be built on top of all of these things that are going on. And this is crypto. So almost all of them are going to have a token, and almost all of them are going to do an airdrop. And Eigen is certainly makes the most sense for all of that to take place on. So this is ETH DeFi summer too. It's super exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really sounds like that, but just to really reflect to that, so you mentioned, or you drew a comparison with staking Atom in 2021. Back then in 2021, you just staked Atom, and except you staked it with the Kraken exchange or something, it didn't really matter with which validator you staked with. But obviously, apparently, this is different in the EigenLayer space. So you have to pick your operator wisely and check to which AVS you are exposed to when staking with this fellow operator. Is that correct?
I think that's exactly right. And you know, there was some like little nuance within staking Atom. Like you wouldn't have wanted to stake with Binance or Coinbase or Kraken or something right away. Then you would have missed basically all of the airdrops and been very sad. But this is even more important because, like I was saying earlier, like Steven and Mara have gone out and they know all of these LRT protocols, and so there's a very good likelihood that folks who have like been in the DeFi Dojo and doing a similar thing like this, but just for the DeFi Dojo, like all of those teams are involved. And so I think it's very likely that we could get a disproportionate amount of certain airdrops in the future from teams that we have been closely working with.
One thing I would say is like, this is just such an amazing marriage of some of the, you know, great connections and skills that both of these teams have over time, you know, from Cosmos, from Ethereum. We, you know, are lucky to be relatively well-known in the space, relatively well-connected in the space. We're very excited about EigenLayer, and we are going to be going out there and working for, you know, the best possible partnerships with AVSs, with LRTs. And of course, you know, as Farmer said, those will have corresponding airdrops. So, you know, if you're going to be staking with DeFi Dojo X Friends Operator on EigenLayer, just know that you're going to have an incredibly excited and motivated team out there kind of battling for your ETH to be one, you know, getting the best possible, you know, AVS returns in the future, but the early kind of stage, you know, getting the best risk-adjusted airdrops, you know, going and securing kind of the most competent and interesting chains that are out there. So, you know, we're going to keep on giving you guys these updates as things progress. EigenLayer is moving incredibly quickly. There's new, you know, partnerships that we'll be announcing. There's new things that EigenLayer is going to be announcing in the coming weeks. So just really encourage everyone to stay connected, keep on paying attention. And if you are natively staking ETH on EigenLayer, highly consider the DeFi Dojo and Friends Operator.
Yeah, I think this really hits the nail on its head. I think there's nothing more to add here. So yeah, go ahead, please stake with us in order to be exposed to all of these juicy airdrops that are about to come. I really want to, you know, close this episode with a statement that I've heard from you, Stephen, on the roll-up interview, which was a very good way to put it. So if the EigenLayer airdrop, then you have all of these LRT airdrops which are taking place, and then finally the AVS airdrops are like the icing on the cake. And yeah, when choosing an operator like us, you're choosing which operator should give the icing to you on your cake. So yeah, please consider staking with us. And yeah, thank you guys. This was really fun. So maybe we should do a catch-up call sometimes in the next few weeks, maybe when EigenLayer finally launches. So yes, just like a last question into the round for each of you. When EigenLayer launch, in your opinion, and what will be the valuation at launch? So like maybe a small estimation game. We start.
Ooh, I like this. Okay, so Mara and I are going to have totally different answers here. I'd like to hear Farmer's answer as well. I think that EigenLayer was supposed to launch this month and then had some delays. And I base that off of some conversations I've had with investors in Eigen. And so I think it's probably going to launch mid-May. And I think the valuation mid-May will depend on market conditions, but should be between 25 and 40 billion FDV.
I'm actually pretty similar to Steven on this. I think that valuation is pretty solid. I think, you know, between 20 and 40 makes a lot of sense. I would, if I had to pick a specific number, I would say probably a $30 billion valuation, just based off of kind of other things that have been launching. It's crazy to think that, you know, Ether layer launch.
I think you was going to say EtherFi is like 5 billion. There you go. Go ahead.
Yeah. 5 or 6 billion, you know, TVL or 5 or 6 billion FDV. So, you know, there are tons and tons and tons of projects building on EigenLayer. So it is quite likely that it will have some gargantuan, you know, FDV. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a relatively low float and we're in good market conditions and speculation continues to build and they have some interesting tokenomics and stuff like that, that it could be one of the first protocols that launch this year that hits 100 billion. Like, I don't think that that's crazy to even think about. So like, just to give people kind of a, you know, the scale of this. And then in terms of launch, I'm a little bit further out. You know, I agree that I think there's, you know, the team is quite motivated to launch this thing. So that's why it's, you know, super important for folks that are interested in getting exposure to this to go and restake their ETH now. But I think it's more likely to happen sometime in June, maybe mid to late June is kind of what I'm thinking. But, you know, certainly within Q2 of this year, I think that that's, you know, highly probabilistic.
I think it's going to launch on 420 at $420 billion valuation.
Yeah, my guess is June.
In 69 days.
Yeah, in 69 days, yeah. No, but I think it will launch on June 13, just one day before the European Championship starts. And valuation 42 billion, because Germany will beat Scotland 4-2.
Nice.
Love that. Very bullish.
Very bullish. Yeah, thank you guys so much. And please, guys, make sure to join the DeFi Dojo Discord if you really want to dive as deep as possible into all of the yield opportunities in the EigenLayer ecosystem. And yeah, stay on top of everything. And also go ahead, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Stake with us, stake your ETH with our operator on EigenLayer to get exposure to the airdrops. And with that being said, thank you guys once again for joining, and I hope I see you on the show very soon.
Thanks, Yuri.